On my birthday, I found out my wife cheated. She laughed on the phone while with another man. I woke up that morning expecting something, anything, to feel different. After all, it was my birthday. For a moment, as my eyes adjusted to the dim morning light filtering through the curtains, I listened for the soft hum of my wife, Evelyn, moving around the house. Maybe she was in the kitchen brewing coffee. Maybe she had stepped out to pick up breakfast. Maybe, just maybe, she had planned something special. But as the seconds passed, all I heard was silence. I reached for my phone on the nightstand, my fingers brushing over its cold screen before bringing it to life. No notifications, no messages, nothing from Evelyn, not even a simple "happy birthday, babe." I frowned, sitting up in bed and rubbing the sleep from my eyes. Maybe she's waiting until later. Maybe she wanted to surprise me. I tried to shake off the unsettling feeling creeping into my gut. I had been married long enough to know Evelyn wasn't exactly the most affectionate or sentimental woman, but forgetting my birthday? That would be a new low, even for her. I forced myself out of bed, heading to the bathroom, then the kitchen. Still no sign of her. The house was empty, devoid of any indication that today was different from any other day. I checked the dining table, the kitchen counter. No gifts, no breakfast, no small token of appreciation. Nothing. By 9 a.m., doubt had fully settled in. By noon, irritation had taken over. By 3 p.m., I couldn't ignore it anymore. She forgot. She actually forgot. I stared at my phone, my thumb hovering over the call button. Maybe I should just let it go, pretend it didn't bother me. But why the hell should I? This wasn't some insignificant date on the calendar. This was my day, and my own wife couldn't even be bothered to acknowledge it. Frustration bubbling, I finally hit dial. She picked up on the second ring, her voice casual, almost distracted. "Oh, hey, what's up?" I blinked. "What's up?" That was how she answered my call, not even the slightest hint of recognition. I swallowed the annoyance burning in my throat. "Are we still doing dinner?" There was silence on the other end, followed by an exaggerated sigh. "Oh, honey. I should have told you earlier. I have more important plans tonight." I felt my grip tighten around the phone. More important plans? I forced a breath through my nose. More important than my birthday? My voice was even, controlled, but inside, I was anything but. Then she did something that sent my blood boiling. She laughed, like I was a child throwing a tantrum over something trivial. "Don't be so dramatic. We can do something next weekend, okay?" I stared at the phone like it had just betrayed me. I felt the familiar weight of disappointment settle deep in my chest, but this time, it didn't just feel like disappointment. It felt like something breaking, like something that had been stretched thin for too long had finally snapped. Before I could respond, I heard something in the background. A voice. A man's voice. Then Evelyn's laughter followed, light and teasing. "Save me some dessert." My breath hitched. My stomach twisted into something ugly and unfamiliar. It was subtle, but it was there. The way her tone softened when she spoke to him. The effortless ease in her voice. Whoever he was, she was comfortable with him. Too comfortable. I swallowed back the rising bile in my throat. Don't jump to conclusions. Maybe it was a coworker, a friend. Maybe it was nothing. But deep down, I knew it wasn't nothing. She hadn't just forgotten my birthday. She had chosen to spend it with someone else. And not only that, she didn't even care enough to hide it. I didn't even have the strength to argue. She knew what she was doing. She knew, and she just didn't care. So I hung up. I stared at my phone, at the empty screen, at the complete absence of anything resembling love or care from the woman I had married. I could sit here and be miserable. I could spend the night drowning in frustration, replaying her words over and over again in my head. Or I could do something about it. That's when I got an idea. A slow, cold smile tugged at my lips. If she didn't care about my birthday, then maybe I should celebrate with people who actually do. I grabbed my keys, my phone, and my jacket. Evelyn had made her choice. Now it was my turn to make mine. I sat in my car for a long moment, gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. The silence around me felt heavy, suffocating, a reflection of the void my wife had left in our marriage. I could have stayed home, wallowing in frustration, drowning myself in anger over how Evelyn had treated me. But no, not this time. I wasn't going to let her ruin my birthday. I took a deep breath and picked up my phone, scrolling through my contacts until I found the one person who had always been there for me, Marcus. The moment I pressed the call button, he answered almost immediately. "Lucas, birthday boy. Finally decided to check in, huh?" He greeted, his voice full of warmth. I exhaled, shaking my head. "Yeah, listen, you busy tonight?" "Busy?" "Bro, I was about to call you. Julia's been baking all day, and we were hoping you'd stop by. You better not tell me you're stuck with Evelyn tonight." I let out a humorless laugh. "Evelyn has more important plans tonight?" There was silence on the line for a beat. Then Marcus scoffed. Of course she does. Man, I swear I don't know how you deal with that woman. I clenched my jaw, trying to push down the resentment bubbling inside me. I don't either, Marcus. Then stop dealing with her and get over here. We'll give you the birthday you deserve. For the first time that day, I smiled. The drive to Marcus and Julia's house felt strangely liberating. With every mile I put between myself and Evelyn, I felt like I was taking back a part of myself, like I was choosing to be with people who actually cared about me. By the time I pulled into their driveway, the weight pressing on my chest had started to lift. The door swung open before I even knocked. There he is, Marcus grinned, pulling me into a tight hug before patting my back. Birthday boy is finally here. Julia appeared behind him, a warm smile on her face as she wiped flour from her hands. We were starting to think Evelyn kidnapped you. I forced a laugh, stepping inside. I think we both know she wouldn't waste the effort. Marcus and Julia exchanged a look, but they didn't press. Instead, Julia motioned toward the dining table where a beautifully decorated cake sat. The words, "Happy Birthday, Lucas," were written in chocolate frosting, surrounded by candles. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at it. It wasn't some grand, expensive gift. It wasn't anything extravagant, but it was thoughtful, and that was worth more than anything Evelyn had ever given me. Come on, sit, Julia urged, nudging me toward the table. I made all your favorites. I glanced at the spread: steak, mashed potatoes, roasted vegetables, fresh bread, the kind of meal that someone who actually knew me would make. I swallowed the lump forming in my throat and sat down. As we ate, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: belonging. Marcus's parents, who had always treated me like family, were there, laughing and sharing stories. His younger brother teased me about getting older, while Julia fussed over making sure I had enough to eat. It was normal. It was warm. It was everything my marriage lacked. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't jealous of what Marcus and Julia had. I was just grateful to be a part of it. Halfway through dinner, Marcus leaned in, lowering his voice. So, you going to tell me what happened with Evelyn? I sighed, setting my fork down. She forgot my birthday, I admitted, my voice flat. Julia sucked in a breath. Oh, Lucas. I shook my head. Not just that. I called her, hoping we were still doing dinner. You know what she said? Marcus raised an eyebrow. I clenched my jaw. She had more important plans. His grip on his glass tightened. You're joking. I scoffed. I wish. And get this. There was a guy in the background laughing. She even told him to save her some dessert. Julia's hand flew to her mouth. Lucas. I don't even know why I'm surprised, I muttered, rubbing a hand down my face. She's been like this for years. The bare minimum is too much effort for her. Marcus exhaled sharply, shaking his head. Man, you deserve better than that. I forced a smile. I'm starting to realize that. As the night went on, the warmth of their company settled into my bones, replacing the anger and resentment I had carried all day. At some point, Julia lit the candles on my cake, and everyone sang, loudly, off-key, completely chaotic, but it was perfect. As I blew out the candles, I hesitated. In the past, my birthday wishes had been simple: success, happiness, stability. But this year, I wished for clarity, for the strength to stop settling, for the courage to walk away from someone who clearly didn't love me. After dinner, as we sat around the table laughing over old memories, I pulled out my phone. The screen was still empty. Evelyn hadn't sent a single message. I should have expected it, but it still stung. Then, almost instinctively, I opened my camera, snapped a picture of the table, the cake, the drinks, the warmth in everyone's faces, and I posted it. Huge thank you to my real family for making my birthday special. So grateful to be surrounded by people who actually care. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Marcus glanced over my shoulder, reading the caption, and grinned. Damn, that's a bold move. I smirked. Say made her choice. Now I'm making mine. The second the post went live, I felt a shift inside me. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about making Evelyn jealous. It was about reclaiming my life. For years, I had convinced myself that things would get better, that if I just tried harder, gave more, endured more, she would eventually love me the way I deserved. But tonight proved what I had been too scared to admit. I didn't need Evelyn. I had people who already loved me, and for the first time in years, I felt free. The first thing I noticed when I woke up the next morning was how light I felt. Not physically, no, my body still ached from laughing too hard at Marcus's jokes and eating way too much of Julia's home-cooked food, but emotionally, mentally. For the first time in years, there wasn't that heavy weight pressing on my chest. I had expected to wake up drowning in regret over my post. Maybe I'd worry that I'd been too bold. that I should have kept things private. But as I stretched and rolled over, glancing at my phone on the nightstand, I didn't feel an ounce of regret. Instead, I felt satisfaction. I reached for my phone and unlocked it. That's when I saw it. My screen was flooded with notifications. At first, I thought it was just the usual. Marcus and Julia tagging me in photos from last night, maybe a few birthday wishes from people I hadn't talked to in years. But then I saw her name, Evelyn. Evelyn, what is this post, Lucas? Evelyn, are you serious right now? Evelyn, you better pick up your damn phone. I stared at the messages, my pulse steady, unbothered. So she had seen it. I almost laughed at how predictable she was. I scrolled down, noticing 5 missed calls from her, all in the span of 20 minutes. Then another text, Evelyn. You're making me look bad. And there it was. Not, I'm sorry I forgot your birthday. Not, and I feel terrible for ignoring you. Not, and I want to make this right. Just her own damn pride. She didn't care that she had hurt me. She cared that other people saw it. I smirked. This was the woman I had spent the last few years with. Selfish, inconsiderate, and so obsessed with appearances that she was willing to fight over optics rather than her own actions. I let the phone buzz again and again. I didn't answer. She could wait. By noon, I was sitting in Marcus's kitchen, sipping on coffee while Julia hummed in the background, flipping pancakes. Air too relaxed for someone whose phone has been ringing for an hour straight, Marcus mused, leaning against the counter watching me. I chuckled, setting my cup down. She's mad. Julia glanced over her shoulder. Let me guess, not because she forgot your birthday, but because she looks bad. I pointed at her. Bingo. Marcus scoffed. Classic. I shrugged. Let her be mad. I don't care anymore. Marcus grinned. That's exactly the energy you need to keep. Just then, my phone buzzed again. This time, I picked it up, not to answer but to read the newest text. Evelyn, you better pick up, Lucas. I'm coming over. I let out a slow exhale, shaking my head. She's on her way. Julia groaned, turning the stove off. Oh, do you want us to make up an excuse to get rid of her? I shook my head. No, I think I want to hear what she has to say. Marcus smirked. This should be good. 30 minutes later, there was a loud, angry knock at the door. Marcus and I exchanged glances before he stood, stretching leisurely. Want to make her wait? I chuckled. Oh, no need. I already won. I walked over to the door, took a deep breath, and opened it. Evelyn stormed inside like she owned the place, her heels clicking aggressively against the floor. She looked furious, her cheeks flushed, her eyes burning with a mix of embarrassment and rage. We need to talk, now. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. Go ahead, talk. Her gaze flickered around the room, at Marcus lounging on the couch, at Julia watching from the kitchen, at the leftover decorations from last night's actual celebration. She hated that. She hated that I had moved on from her, even for a single night. She lifted her chin, composing herself. Not here. Come outside. I smirked. No thanks. Say what you need to say right here. Her jaw clenched. Lucas, you have no idea how many people have seen that post. I raised an eyebrow. Could. Her hands balled into fists. You're embarrassing me. I tilted my head. Oh? And how do you think I felt when my own wife ignored my birthday and spent the night with some other guy? Silence. She shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting away. That's exactly what happened. I cut in, my voice calm. And now that people are calling you out for it, you care. But not because of what you did, just because you don't like looking bad. She glared at me. You're acting like a child. I shrugged. Call it whatever you want. It's the truth. Her lips curled, her tone turning sharp. You're going to regret this, Lucas. I smirked. Oh? And what exactly am I supposed to regret? She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Once your finances, your stability, everything we built together. That's when it clicked. She wasn't threatening to leave. She was threatening to take me down financially. I stared at her for a long moment before I burst out laughing. She scowled. What's so funny? I wiped a tear from my eye. You actually think I need you? Her expression twisted into something almost desperate. Oh, you'll come crawling back, she hissed. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. No, Evelyn, I won't. For a long moment she just stood there fuming. Then, as if suddenly remembering she had an audience, she turned to Marcus and Julia, forcing a tight, bitter smile. Ain't I see what's happening here, she said coldly. You're filling his head with nonsense. Julia crossed her arms. Lucas is a grown man. You just don't like that he's finally standing up to you. Evelyn's nostrils flared. She turned back to me, her voice softer now. Lucas, I'm your wife. I gave her a long, unreadable look before replying. No, Evelyn. You're just the person I legally share a last name with. Nothing more. Her face twisted in rage. You think you can replace me? I shrugged. Oh, if the shoe fits. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. She was losing control. She turned on her heel and stormed toward the door, but before she left, she shot me one last glare. This isn't over, I smirked. It is for me. And with that, she slammed the door behind her. The moment the door slammed shut behind Evelyn, the room fell into silence. A heavy, charged silence that seemed to buzz in the air like static before a storm. I let out a slow breath, running a hand through my hair. She's going to come back, Marcus muttered, taking a sip of his beer. Oh, that woman's got more fight in her than a rabid dog. Julia shot him a look, but I smirked. He wasn't wrong. She can come back all she wants, I said, stretching my arms. I'm done entertaining her nonsense. Julia sighed. I just don't get it. How does someone ignore their husband's birthday and then have the nerve to show up here acting like you're the problem? Because Evelyn's never wrong, I said dryly. At least not in her own head. Marcus shook his head. You handled that like a champ, though, the way you didn't even flinch. Man, I'd have lost my temper the second she walked in here talking about her reputation. I chuckled, but I wasn't laughing inside. The truth was, I wasn't even mad anymore. I was disgusted. Evelyn had made it clear where I stood in her life, and now it was my turn to decide where she stood in mine. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed on the table. I already knew who it was. Marcus raised an eyebrow. She's not done, huh? I sighed, picking up my phone. Nope. Evelyn, open the damn door, Lucas. I blinked, then turned, glancing at the window. Sure enough, there she was, standing on the porch, arms crossed, foot tapping, wearing the expression of a woman who refused to be ignored. Julia let out a low whistle. She's really not letting this go. Marcus smirked. Well, this just got interesting. I stood up, exhaling. Might as well get this over with. The moment I opened the door, Evelyn pushed past me, marching straight into the house as if she still had any right to be here. We need to talk, she snapped, spinning around to face me. I shut the door behind me and leaned against it, arms crossed. Oh, I think we already did. Her eyes flashed. You think you're being cute? You think embarrassing me like this is funny? I tilted my head. So I think it's funny that you think you're the victim in all this. She let out a frustrated breath. Lucas, this little tantrum of yours needs to stop. I chuckled. That's rich, coming from the woman who tracked me down just to throw a fit in someone else's house. Her jaw clenched. That post you made? Take it down. I smirked. No. Her lips curled into a sneer. You're making this worse for yourself. I raised an eyebrow. Am I? Yes. Her voice was sharp now, dripping with barely concealed rage. You're acting like a bitter child because I had other plans. I pushed off the door, stepping toward her. Oh, forgot my birthday, Evelyn. My voice was calm, too calm. And when I called you, hoping we still had plans, you brushed me off, laughed at me, told me something else was more important. Her mouth opened, then closed. I took another step forward. And you expect me to feel bad? Her hands balled into fists. I already said. You didn't, I cut in, my tone sharper now. You didn't say sorry. You didn't even acknowledge it. You only showed up here because people saw the truth, and you don't like what it says about you. She exhaled sharply through her nose. This isn't about me. I barked out a laugh. Everything is about you, Evelyn. That's the problem. Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Then, in a quieter voice, she said, "You can fix this." I stared at her for a second. For half a second, I almost let myself believe she meant it. But then I saw it, the way she wasn't looking at me but past me, like she was still calculating, still playing a game. I shook my head, the last thread of hope snapping. Oh no, Evelyn. You can't fix this because you don't think you did anything wrong. She swallowed, forcing a softer expression onto her face. Lucas, I'm your wife. I smiled coldly. Not for much longer. Her breath hitched, then her mask cracked. You think you can just walk away from me? Her voice trembled, part anger, part disbelief. You think you can just throw away everything we built? I let out a slow, measured breath. You threw it away first. Her hands were shaking now. You'll regret this, Lucas. I tilted my head. Why? Because I won't have someone who ignores me, disrespects me, chooses another man's company over mine? Her eyes flashed. I smirked. Save it, Evelyn. You and I both know the truth. For a moment, I thought she might deny it again, but then her lips curled into something dark. You're making a mistake. No, I said quietly. Staying with you was the mistake. Leaving is the smartest thing I've ever done. Her nostrils flared. She turned on her heel, heading for the door, but just before she stepped out, she threw one final threat over her shoulder. Oh, you'll regret this, she repeated. I smirked. We'll see. Then I shut the door, and for the first time in years, I felt free. The silence after Evelyn left was deafening. For a long moment, I just stood there, staring at the closed door, feeling the weight of everything settle in my chest. Then I let out a slow breath. I had done it. I had finally stood my ground. No more second-guessing. No more excuses. No more letting her walk all over me like my time, my feelings, my very existence didn't matter. I was done. I turned back toward the living room, where Marcus and Julia were watching me with matching expressions, a mix of satisfaction and caution. Marcus was the first to break the silence. Well, that was entertaining. I let out a low chuckle, rubbing a hand over my face. Oh yeah, I should start charging for tickets. Julia sighed, shaking her head as she leaned back on the couch. She's not done, Lucas. You know that, right? I met her eyes. I did know. Evelyn wasn't the type to just let something go. She needed control, needed to be the one who dictated the terms. And now that I had stripped that away, she wasn't going to walk away quietly. No, she was going to fight, and I needed to be ready for it. I didn't have to wait long. Barely an hour after she stormed out, my phone lit up again. Evelyn, you really think you can just do this? Evelyn, you think you can humiliate me and walk away without consequences? Evelyn, you better answer me, Lucas. I am not playing with you. I stared at the messages, my jaw tightening. Then, before I could even decide whether to respond, another text came through. Evelyn, fine. You want to play games? Let's play. My stomach clenched. That didn't sound like anger anymore. That sounded like a threat. I sat back, my mind racing. Evelyn wasn't stupid. She wasn't reckless. No, she was calculated, and when she felt threatened, she didn't lash out blindly. She struck where it hurt the most, and I knew exactly what that meant. She wasn't just going to yell and scream and throw insults over text. She was going to make my life hell. Julia must have noticed the shift in my expression because she frowned. Lucas, what did she say? I exhaled slowly, running a hand through my hair before handing her my phone. Her eyes scanned the messages, and her lips pressed into a thin line. She's planning something, she muttered. Marcus leaned over, reading over her shoulder before shaking his head. And she's bluffing. I let out a humorless laugh. You don't know, Evelyn. Marcus frowned. What's she going to do? Trash talk you? Play the victim? You can handle that. I sighed. It's not that simple. She knows where to hit me, where it hurts, and she's going to go straight for it. And I was right. Because not even 2 hours later, the real attack began. It started with a single phone call, then another, then another. By the time I checked my voicemail, I already had 5 messages, each one worse than the last. First, it was her friend Melissa. Lucas, I don't know what's going on, but Evelyn is devastated. She's crying, saying you're trying to turn everyone against her. Please, can you just talk to her? Then her mother, Lucas, I don't know what you said to my daughter, but this is unacceptable. I raised her better than to be with a man who humiliates her publicly. Call her and fix this. Then my boss, Lucas, Evelyn reached out to me. She says you're going through some personal things, and I just want to make sure everything's okay. Let's talk first thing Monday. I froze. She had gone after my job. Julia's head snapped toward me as she saw my expression darken. Lucas? I clenched my jaw, playing the last message, and then came the worst one of all, Evelyn herself. You wanted a war, Lucas? Fine, let's have a war. You don't get to just walk away. You don't get to humiliate me and think there won't be consequences. I've spent years building our life together. You think you can just throw that away? I will take everything from you. Watch me. Then a click, and silence. I put my phone down, my entire body tense. Marcus let out a low whistle. Damn, she really went nuclear. Julia's expression hardened. She's trying to isolate you, make you look like the bad guy. I nodded slowly. She wants to take control of the narrative before I can... And it was working. If she had already contacted my boss, there was no telling how far she'd go next. Would she try to drain our bank account? Get people at work to turn against me? Would she start telling lies? No, she wouldn't have to lie. She knew all she had to do was spin the truth just enough to make me look like the villain. She'd play the hurt wife, tell people I had been distant, neglectful, cold, paint herself as the woman who had tried to save our marriage, only for me to be the one who walked away. And because Evelyn was charming, because she had spent years cultivating an image, people would believe her. I took a slow, steady breath. "Lucas," Julia's voice was firm, pulling me from my thoughts. I looked up. "You need to get ahead of this," she said. Marcus nodded. "She's moving fast. You need to move faster." I exhaled. "I know." Julia hesitated before asking the question I didn't want to hear. "What's your next move?" I leaned back, thinking. Evelyn wanted to play dirty? Fine. But what she didn't realize was I wasn't the same man I had been yesterday. I wasn't the passive, quiet husband she had spent years manipulating. She had pushed me too far, and now it was my turn to fight. I picked up my phone. The first call I made was to my lawyer, the second to my boss before Evelyn could get in another word, the third to my bank to make sure she didn't pull anything stupid, and the fourth straight to Evelyn. Because if she wanted to play games, she was about to learn that she had already lost. I stared at my phone, my thumb hovering over Evelyn's number. I had no doubts she was expecting me to stay silent, to panic, to let her threats sink in and make me fold like I always had before. But this time was different. This time I wasn't playing by her rules. With a steady breath, I hit dial. The phone rang once, twice, then she picked up. The second I heard her voice, I knew she was smirking. "Well, that was fast," Evelyn purred. "You finally came to your senses?" I leaned back in my chair, keeping my tone calm. "Just thought I'd return the favor since you've been so eager to talk." A pause. She hadn't expected that. "You made a mistake, Lucas," she said, her voice dripping with smugness. "I gave you a chance to fix this, and instead, you decided to embarrass me. And now, well, let's just say you're about to learn how expensive that mistake was." I smirked. "You mean like how you called my boss? Reached out to my friends? Oh, and let's not forget that lovely voicemail where you basically declared war on me." Silence. Then she laughed, a slow, deliberate, mocking laugh. "Lucas, you sound so paranoid. I was just concerned for you. People were worried about your behavior." I cut her off. "Save it. You're not talking to the fool you married anymore. You think you can play the victim while actively trying to destroy me? Go ahead, because I've already taken steps to make sure you can't." That finally got a reaction. "What the hell does that mean?" she snapped. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. "It means I already talked to my boss before you could spin your story. It means I froze our joint accounts before you could pull anything. It means I called my lawyer first thing this morning to make sure whatever you try next, it backfires." The silence on the other end of the line was delicious. For the first time, Evelyn was speechless. "You're bluffing," she said, but there was uncertainty in her voice now. I smiled. "Try me." There was a long pause, then her tone changed. "Lucas, we don't have to do this," she said, suddenly soft. "We can fix this. We can still talk things through, figure it out." I let out a breath, shaking my head. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't about one fight, Evelyn. This isn't about my birthday or a stupid social media post. This is about years of you treating me like I was disposable, like I was an option, like I didn't matter." Another pause, then her voice turned sharp again. "You think walking away from me is going to make you happy? You think you'll be better off without me?" I chuckled because the truth was already staring me in the face. I don't think, Evelyn. I know." Her breath hitched, and that's when she realized she had lost. For years, she had controlled the narrative. She had been the one in power, the one who always knew how to twist things just enough to make me feel like I was in the wrong. But not this time. This time she had pushed too far, and now she was standing at the edge of a cliff she had built herself, and I wasn't reaching out to save her. After a long, suffocating silence, Evelyn exhaled sharply. "Fine." I raised an eyebrow. "Fine?" "Fine," she repeated, her voice colder now. "You want to do this? You want to act like you're so much better without me? Go ahead. But don't come crawling back when you realize you just threw away the best thing that ever happened to you." I smirked. "That's funny. I was just about to say the same thing to you." Before she could respond, I hung up, and this time I didn't hesitate before hitting block. I sat there for a moment, phone still in my hand, letting everything sink in. I had won, not just the argument, not just the fight. I had won my freedom. The weight that had sat so heavily on my chest for so long was gone. The fear of her reaction, the anxiety of her manipulations, the endless cycle of trying to make her happy only to realize she was never going to be, all of it, gone. For the first time in years, I wasn't looking over my shoulder. I wasn't waiting for the next storm, because this time I had walked away from it, and I had never felt lighter. The rest of the day was quiet, peaceful. Julia and Marcus gave me space, letting me process everything on my own terms. And when I finally came back out into the living room, they didn't bombard me with questions. Marcus simply handed me a beer. "So, how's it feel?" I took a sip, then set it down, exhaling, like I just woke up for the first time in years. Julia smiled softly. Good. Hold on to that feeling." I nodded, because I would. I wasn't going back. Not now, not ever. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I thought about all the years I had wasted trying to be enough for someone who was never satisfied. All the times I had second-guessed myself, bent over backwards to make things work, only to be met with indifference. And I realized something. I had been so focused on trying to fix a marriage that wasn't worth saving that I'd forgotten about myself. But not anymore. Now I was finally free to start over, to rebuild, to be happy. I closed my eyes, breathing in the quiet. And for the first time in a long, long time, I didn't feel alone. I felt at peace. The next few days passed in a blur. After Evelyn's final message and my decision to cut all ties, I thought things would settle down. I thought the silence, the peace I had longed for, would be enough to let me breathe, to finally exhale without the constant feeling of walking on eggshells. But I was wrong, because when I woke up on the third morning after the confrontation, the silence was deafening. Evelyn had been quiet for far too long, and as I went through the motions of the day, coffee, emails, a quick workout to clear my head, and then a late lunch with Marcus, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. There was a tension in the air, an unease that had settled deep in my gut. I couldn't pinpoint it. I couldn't explain it. But I knew, deep down, that something was coming. I had always known Evelyn. I had always known the way she worked. And when she was backed into a corner, she didn't stay quiet. I just didn't expect it to be this soon. It was around 4 p.m. when the first hint of trouble arrived. I had just finished a meeting with one of my clients and was about to head out the door when my phone buzzed. I didn't recognize the number, but there was something in the back of my mind, something familiar that told me I needed to answer. I hesitated, then picked up, holding the phone to my ear. And there she was. Evelyn. But this time, her voice wasn't filled with anger or bravado. This time it was desperate. "Oh, Lucas, please, just listen to me." Her voice was shaky, almost broken. I stood still, caught off guard by the sudden shift. I had prepared myself for more threats, more games, more of the same manipulative tactics I had been putting up with for years. But this was different. I clenched my jaw, fighting the urge to react. I knew this was part of her game. She was trying to get me to let my guard down, trying to appeal to whatever sense of sympathy I had left. But I wasn't falling for it. "What's going on, Evelyn?" I asked, keeping my tone level, controlled. She sighed, the sound filled with what I could only describe as frustration. "I don't know what's happening, Lucas. I need you to understand. I didn't mean for things to get this far. I never thought you'd actually leave. I thought we could fix things." I remained silent, waiting for the other shoe to drop, because I knew it was coming, and it didn't take long for it to hit. "You've ruined everything, Lucas. I've been trying to hold it all together, but now I have no choice. You've pushed me too far." Her voice wavered between defeat and rage, and I felt a chill crawl up my spine. I knew this wasn't an empty threat. This was her final move. "You've made this worse than it needed to be," she continued. "I've tried to be patient. I've tried to be understanding. But you don't get to walk away from me like this. You don't get to just throw everything away." My heart pounded. I could hear it in her voice, the real desperation, the desperation of a woman who was losing control for the first time. I didn't feel anger. I felt a strange sense of clarity. This was it. This was what I had been waiting for. Her final, desperate attempt to regain the upper hand. But now I wasn't the one she could manipulate anymore. She was alone in this, and she didn't know how to deal with it. I leaned against the table, breathing in slowly before speaking. "You're right, Evelyn. You've ruined it. Not just for me, but for us. You pushed me to this point. This isn't some petty fight. This is the end." There was a pause, a long one. Then she whispered, almost too softly to hear, "Please, Lucas." The rawness in her voice caught me off guard, and for a moment, I almost felt the tug of empathy. But then, as quickly as it came, the feeling was gone. Because I knew what she was doing. This wasn't a confession. This wasn't remorse. This was manipulation. She had lost, and now she was desperate. I shook my head, speaking slowly, deliberately. You don't get to play the victim, Evelyn. You had your chance, and you blew it. She didn't respond for a moment, and then her voice was louder, more forceful, more commanding. Fine, she snapped. But don't say I didn't warn you. I'll make sure you regret this. You'll see. Everyone will know the truth about you. I knew exactly what she was threatening. She would start spinning the story, telling people how I had abandoned her, how I had walked away from our marriage for no reason other than my own selfishness, and I knew that she would turn every single person against me if she could. But this time, I wasn't going to let her. I took a breath, holding my ground. Go ahead, do your worst. But just know, this is on you. I hung up before she could say another word. As the phone call ended, I felt an odd sense of calm wash over me. I had expected the desperation to make me hesitate, to make me doubt my decision, but instead it only strengthened my resolve. This was over. I wasn't going to let her pull me back into the same cycle. Evelyn could threaten me all she wanted. She could smear my name, destroy my reputation, try to turn people against me. But I was done. I had already made my choice, and nothing, not even her, could change that. The moment I hung up on Evelyn, I felt a strange sense of finality settle over me. I had expected to feel something, regret, relief, maybe even guilt, but instead there was only clarity. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for her next move. I wasn't chasing after her approval, trying to piece together a marriage that had been broken from the start. No, this time, I had taken control, and it was her who was now spiraling, her who was panicking, her who was losing. I wasn't the desperate one anymore. Evelyn was, but I knew her. I knew she wasn't done. She never lost without trying to drag someone down with her, and I had a feeling she was about to make one final move. I just didn't know how bad it would be. That answer came 2 days later. I was sitting in my office at work, catching up on emails, when my phone buzzed with a new notification. At first I ignored it, then another came through, and another. My brows furrowed as I unlocked my phone. It was my work group chat, and the messages were coming in fast. Coworker 1, did you see Evelyn's post? Coworker 2, WTF man, is this real? Coworker 3, damn Lucas, this is brutal. I frowned, my stomach twisting as I scrolled down. Then I saw it, a long, dramatic Facebook post written by none other than Evelyn herself, and the caption, "The truth about my husband, Lucas." I inhaled sharply. I knew she would pull something like this, but I hadn't expected her to go public. With a deep breath, I clicked on the post and started reading. For years, I gave my heart to a man who never truly loved me. I was a devoted wife, always putting his needs first, always sacrificing to make him happy. But some people don't know how to appreciate what they have. Lucas walked out on our marriage without warning. No explanation, no effort to fix things. Just one day, he decided I wasn't good enough for him anymore. And now, he's making me out to be the villain while he plays the victim. I won't stay silent. People deserve to know the truth about who Lucas really is. And then, the comments. It was like watching a wildfire spread. People who had no idea what had really happened were jumping in, offering their sympathy, calling me out, accusing me of being a heartless husband. For random commenter. 1, I can't believe he did that to you. You deserve so much better, Evelyn. Random commenter 2, typical man, runs away when things get tough. I hope you get everything in the divorce. Random commenter 3, Lucas, if you're reading this, you should be ashamed of yourself. I let out a slow breath. I should have been furious. I should have been shocked. But all I felt was exhaustion. Because this was so typical of Evelyn. She couldn't control me anymore, so she was trying to control the narrative instead. She wanted sympathy. She wanted validation. She wanted to make sure that when people looked at me, they saw a monster, not a man who had spent years being neglected and disrespected. And honestly, I didn't care what her friends thought. But when I started seeing familiar names in the comments, mutual friends, family members, coworkers, that's when the real anger hit. Evelyn wasn't just attacking me personally. She was going after my reputation, and that was something I couldn't ignore. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling. Marcus had warned me this would happen. Julia had predicted it perfectly, and yet seeing it unfold in real time was still something else. I didn't even have to think about what I needed to do next, because Evelyn had just made a critical mistake. She thought she was in control of the story. She thought I would stay silent. She thought she could keep twisting the truth, knowing I wouldn't fight back. But she was wrong. I was done letting her win. That night, I made a decision. If Evelyn wanted to play dirty, fine. But I wasn't going to fight on her level. No long emotional posts. No desperate attempts to prove my innocence. Just one simple, devastating move. I logged into my account and wrote a single post. Unless there are always two sides to every story. And for those who actually know me, you already know the truth. But if you don't, then maybe it's time you start asking Evelyn the right questions." Then, without another word, I attached one final thing, a screenshot of her voicemail. The one where she had threatened me. The one where she had admitted she was trying to destroy me. And then I hit post. It didn't take long for the fallout to begin. Less than an hour later, my phone exploded with notifications. Some people immediately deleted their comments from Evelyn's post. Others messaged me privately, apologizing for believing her lies. And then there were the ones who went back to her post, demanding answers. Commenter 1, "Evelyn, care to explain this voicemail?" Commenter 2, "So you were lying the whole time?" Commenter 3, "Wow, the audacity. And Evelyn?" She panicked. She tried to delete her post. She tried to play the victim again. But it was too late. The truth was out, and the final blow had landed. That night, for the first time in years, I slept peacefully, because I knew one thing for certain: Evelyn had just lost everything, and I had finally won. The morning after I dropped the final blow, I woke up to an eerily quiet phone. No missed calls, no texts, no notifications. It was almost unsettling. For days, Evelyn had been relentless, threatening, manipulating, playing the victim in every way she knew how. But after last night, after I posted the voicemail, after the truth started spreading, she had gone completely silent, and that told me everything. She wasn't just losing control, she had already lost it. I exhaled, rubbing a hand over my face as I sat up in bed. My mind felt clearer than it had in years, but there was still a lingering tension in my chest. I knew Evelyn. She was like a wounded animal, dangerous, unpredictable, desperate. And even though I had exposed her, even though she had been backed into a corner, I knew this wasn't over. Not yet. I made my way to the kitchen, brewing a cup of coffee, letting the aroma fill the air as I tried to gather my thoughts. The moment I took my first sip, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. It was Marcus. I answered immediately. "Morning," his voice came through the line, amused but cautious. "Bro, I think you officially broke your ex-wife." I sighed. "What now?" Marcus let out a low chuckle. "She's losing it, man." I woke up to a bunch of messages. Apparently, Evelyn's been calling everyone, trying to spin some last-minute sob story. I rolled my eyes. Of course she is. She's not getting the reaction she wants, though. His voice held a hint of satisfaction. People are finally seeing her for who she really is. That hit differently. For so long, Evelyn had been untouchable. She had always been the one in control, the one who dictated how people saw her, how they saw me. But now, people were questioning her. And for someone like Evelyn, that was worse than losing me. Marcus continued. "Oh, and you're going to love this. She tried to call Julia last night. I nearly choked on my coffee." "Wait, what?" Marcus laughed. "Yeah, I don't know what she was thinking, but she must have thought Julia would take her side or something. Julia shut that down real quick." I smirked. I bet she did. Julia had never liked Evelyn. She had tolerated her for my sake, but she had always seen right through her games. "So what did she say?" I asked. Marcus sighed. "Same old crap. That you were lying, that she was the real victim, that she didn't mean to hurt you, blah, blah, blah." I shook my head. "And Julia?" She laughed in her face and hung up. I chuckled. Remind me to thank her later." Marcus hummed. "So, what's next? She going to keep trying, or you think she'll finally give up?" I leaned against the counter, exhaling. "I think she's running out of moves," I admitted. Evelyn had played every card she had: manipulation, threats, public humiliation. And now that none of it had worked, she was left with nothing. But that didn't mean she wouldn't try one last time. Because if there was one thing I knew for sure, it was that Evelyn hated losing. I spent most of the day ignoring my phone. I didn't check social media. I didn't check my messages. For the first time in a long time, I just focused on myself. I went for a long drive, blasting my favorite music. I stopped at a diner I hadn't been to in years, ordering a meal without worrying about what someone else wanted. I sat at the park, watching the sunset, feeling at peace in a way I never had before. It was strange, realizing how much of my life I had spent making room for Evelyn, prioritizing her over myself. And now that she was gone, I felt lighter, freer, like I could finally breathe. But of course, Evelyn wasn't the type to let me enjoy my peace for long. Because at exactly 8 p.m., my phone rang again. And this time, it wasn't a random number. It was her. I stared at the screen for a long moment, debating whether to answer. Then finally I picked up, but I didn't say anything. I just waited. Evelyn's voice came through the line, soft, broken. "Lucas, please don't hang up." I didn't respond. She let out a shaky breath. Just, I don't know what to do anymore. I've lost everything. People are turning against me. I don't know how to fix this." I kept silent. Because I knew what she was doing. This wasn't guilt. This wasn't remorse. This was self-preservation. She didn't miss me. She missed the control. I never wanted it to be like this, she whispered. I don't know who I am without you. I let out a slow breath, shaking my head. And finally, I spoke. You're going to have to figure that out on your own, Evelyn. Silence. Then a sharp inhale. So that's it? You're really done with me? I smiled. Not a cruel smile, not a triumphant one, just a peaceful one. Yeah, Evelyn. I am. And then, before she could say another word, I hung up. And this time, I felt nothing at all. That night, I sat outside on Marcus's back porch, staring up at the sky. Julia came out, handing me a beer before sitting next to me. She didn't say anything at first. Then, after a moment, she glanced at me. You okay? I took a sip, nodding. Yeah, I said, and for the first time in a long time, I actually meant it. The first morning, after I finally cut Evelyn off, I woke up feeling something I hadn't felt in years, peace. There was no knot in my stomach, no immediate tension in my chest, no urge to check my phone in dread of what drama awaited me. For the first time in a long time, my mind was quiet. And I liked it. I lay in bed for a while, staring at the ceiling, letting the stillness settle over me. My body still remembered the exhaustion of constantly trying to keep my marriage from falling apart. The way I had spent so many nights twisting myself into knots, trying to fix something that was never meant to be saved. But now I had nothing to fix, nothing to chase, nothing to prove. And it was liberating. I let out a slow breath, then sat up, stretching before swinging my legs over the side of the bed. A new day, a new start, and for the first time I was actually excited about what came next. I spent the morning doing something I hadn't done in years, living on my own terms. I went for a run, feeling my muscles stretch and burn in a way that reminded me that my body was my own again. I wasn't hurrying back for anyone. I wasn't worried about checking in. I was just existing. And that was enough. Afterward, I grabbed coffee at a local cafe, the kind of place Evelyn would have turned her nose up at, but I didn't care. I sat by the window sipping my drink, watching the world move around me. For so long, I'd been living in her shadow, making sure my actions fit into the image she wanted to maintain. But now, I was just Lucas again. No husband role to perform, no expectations to meet, just me. And for the first time, that felt like enough. By the afternoon, my phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. Still breathing? I smirked, typing back. More than ever. His response came immediately. Good. Get your ass over here, we're celebrating. An hour later, I was sitting on Marcus's patio, beer in hand, the warm sun hitting my face as laughter filled the air. It was me, Marcus, Julia, and a few of our other close friends, people who had always been in my corner, even when I was too caught up in my marriage to fully appreciate them. Julia clinked her bottle against mine. You look different, she noted, her eyes studying me. I raised an eyebrow. Different how? She shrugged. Lighter, less trapped. Marcus smirked. Yeah, man, it's like you finally took off a 100-pound backpack. You realize you used to look miserable all the time, right? I chuckled, shaking my head. I wasn't that bad. They exchanged a look. Julia snorted. Lucas, you were literally that bad. I sighed, taking a sip of my drink. Well, not anymore. Marcus raised his bottle. To that, my friend. We clinked glasses, and for the first time in a long time, I truly felt like I was where I belonged. As the evening wore on, I found myself thinking about the future. For so long, my world had revolved around keeping my marriage intact, even when I knew deep down that it was doomed. But now, I had options. Maybe I'd start traveling again, go to the places I had always wanted to see but never could because Evelyn had always found a reason to say no. Maybe I'd pick up my old hobbies, the things I had let slip away because I had been too caught up in trying to make someone happy who was never satisfied. Or maybe I'd just enjoy this simple, quiet freedom for as long as I needed to. No rush, no pressure, just me figuring out what made me happy. And that was more than enough. Later that night, after everyone had left and it was just me and Marcus sitting outside, he leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. So, you think she's really done? I exhaled, staring up at the night sky. Son, I don't know, but I do know one thing. Marcus raised an eyebrow. What's that? I met his gaze, my voice steady. It doesn't matter anymore. Because no matter what Evelyn did next, no matter what lies she spread, no matter how many times she tried to reach out, she had no power over me anymore. And that was true freedom. Final thoughts. I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, a soft smile playing at my lips. For the first time in years, I wasn't dreading tomorrow. I wasn't waking up with a pit in my stomach, wondering what new battle awaited me. I was at peace. Because real love, real happiness, wasn't about constantly begging someone to care. It wasn't about sacrificing yourself just to keep someone else satisfied. Real love, real happiness, it came from knowing your worth. And now, I finally did. And that was the best birthday gift I could have ever given myself.